welcome, Peter Switzer, to Know My Life.
Yeah, great pleasure to be here.
It's very interesting, I guess, for you to have the tables turned and be on the other side of the questions for a change.
It doesn't happen very often. I should add this, that sometimes, well, I started off at Sky as an expert on the markets and stuff like that, but they never ever asked me about my personal life.
Well, we're going to do that today.
Okay, great. Right. I'm prepared to reveal all.
Good. Let's start right back at the beginning. Where were you born? What was it like growing up in your house?
Okay, born at St Margaret's, which I don't think exists anymore, but anyway, St Margaret's in Darlinghurst.
So a Sydney fellow?
Yeah, Bronte, very close to the beach. And my life has always been closely related to the beach. I was a member of North Bondi Surf Club, where I was the patrol captain for Malcolm Turnbull when we were both 21. So I've known Malcolm.
Well, there you go. That's a claim to fame, isn't it?
I also taught Scott Morrison economics at the University of New South Wales. So if these guys screw up, I'm going to get blamed for it. Anyway. You
were rubbing shoulders with the big honchos there. You didn't end up in politics.
No, with a very good reason. People have asked me, but I don't find it easy to rearrange reality, which I think you have to do to be a successful politician. You know, you'd like to think that your politicians don't tell lies, and that's why I use the word rearrange reality. But, you know, particularly after working in journalism and the media, I know what my colleagues ask and what they're trying to, those gotcha moments, and I think I'd find that unsettling.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember once seeing Barry Jones, the great quiz champion, when he got into politics, and I just think he was too intelligent and too pure for politics. You know, he was science minister, and I remember covering a budget, and he was covering an issue, and I think even both sides of Parliament were kind of laughing with and at him because of his sincerity, and I didn't like that.
No.
Yeah.
How sad is that?
But but in a sense, he was asking for both politicians and the community to go to a plane
to lift their game.
Yeah, and
no
normality would never accept it, and you couldn't sell it politically, and that's why I think his colleagues were and his rivals. They're just never going to get away with it. And so I don't think I would have been comfortable. So it's been nice to be a commentator, calling the big game.
Yeah.
And I used to have something on Triple M called The Big Game on Fridays, where when I was working with Doug Mulleray. They used to let me take a minute out of a 3-minute news bulletin to actually just bag the crap out of anyone who was behaving pretty ordinarily. And that extended to politicians and sportsmen and even business people.
How fantastic.
It was great fun.
Yeah.
It made me feel great each week to do that.
And another big name that you were associated with back in the day.
Yeah. I was very lucky in that respect.
So take me back to your childhood though.
Okay.
So how many brothers and sisters?
One sister.
Older or younger?
Older. And she's ended up in TV as well. She worked for the Mike Welch show and things like that. And then went to America, and with a partner of hers, business partner, started a television program called Judge Judy, which was which is pretty popular. Yeah.
It's my nickname.
Is it?
It is.
You're that hard, are you?
Can be.
Yeah, and she lives in America.
Wow. Very good. And so grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney?
Eastern suburbs, went to Waverley College.
What were you like at school?
Well, year 10 I was top 10 at Waverley. Then years 11 and 12 probably ended up being top 20, but I was playing both rugby league, and I played for East up to Jersey Flegg, that's under 18s.
Yep.
And then and played rugby as well at school. And so I played first grade water polo, I was the swimming captain. So I was very sports distracted, but still got into commerce at UNSW and ended up doing a master's there and ended up teaching there as well.
And what drew you into economics and commerce? What was it that sort of caught your attention?
I had a really good teacher, I think. I had 2 good teachers in year 11 and year 12. And there's also a historical aspect. I was very good at history, and a lot of economics can be mathematical and models oriented, which I think throw a lot of people. But most of those models come out of history, and really economics is really the psychology of how humans respond to really important economic indicators like interest rates and income, the levels of unemployment, consumer confidence, business confidence. So it's in many ways it's the economic psychology of a person that quite fascinates me. And when you put it all together, you can then make some predictions, and people kind of like you being right. And
it's a different way of looking at things, I suppose, from an economics point of view,
Yeah.
bringing psychology into it.
Yeah, well, I guess when you think about it, when someone, we watch consumer confidence, we watch business confidence, and if consumer confidence and business confidence is down and low for a long time, you wouldn't expect then consumption and business investment to be high. And if they're not going to be high,
makes sense.
You can't expect growth to be high, and if growth's not high, unemployment's going to rise. Now, I remember when I was trying to explain economics to students when I was a school teacher, then later on in lecturing, I used to say that economics can be a little bit like Suzanne economics. This goes with this, goes with this, goes with this. And
You can sing that.
They kind of like that kind of thing, because there are those relationships. We know that, for example, if interest rates go up nowadays, some people would be spooked. Most people think interest rates are going to be on hold or might fall. But imagine if the Reserve Bank decided to raise interest rates. Some people would be spooked. It would affect the economy. Some
That's
businesses
true.
would be affected. Some people would lose jobs. And I kind of like that kind of link, that story.
So university, finished school, went on, did
went to UNSW.
commerce? Yep.
Yeah, did commerce. And once again, sport was a bit distracting, but eventually I met my wife at university, and she kind of explained to me that maybe I should concentrate.
You should knuckle down.
Yeah.
So you listened and you did that?
Yeah. I'm a person who always does as he's told when he can see the great payoff in the future. And I think look, I could have gone and played grade football. I don't think I would have played first grade. I think I was aggressive enough for that. But I certainly So I decided to do a Master of Commerce rather than go and play President's Cup. President's Cup was under 21s just before going into third grade and whatever. I think I made the right decision, quite frankly.
Yep. So still a Roosters fan?
Oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, my son Marty played first grade for East Rugby.
Oh really?
And we sponsor East Rugby as
fantastic!
well. Yeah.
Very good. And then your career took you overseas for a little while.
Yeah, we holidayed overseas for 2 years. We intended to do work overseas, but the Australian dollar was about $1.36 to the US. And
it's too much fun to be had.
That's right, and it really bought a lot of holidays. Unfortunately, in the middle of that holiday, my dad died, surprisingly, and so we had to fly home and run his business until we were able to sell it.
What did Dad do?
Dad had his own small business. He supplied cafes and restaurants with fruit and vegetables, and had some of the best restaurants in Sydney, both the sukiyaki restaurants at King's Cross, Tulips restaurants, Moncur in Wallara, which is a great restaurant, the Patawallara RSL, most of the coffee lounges in Centrepoint and Imperial Arcade. So, it was a good business.
Was that your first kind of entree into having your own business?
Yeah, and I worked with Dad when I was at university. I got a scholarship to uni, and my reward was an EH ute, a trolley, and a leather apron, and 10 coffee lounges that I used to deliver to each morning before going off to university. And so when Dad passed away, all the restaurateurs knew me, so I was able to take over the business, and it meant that we were able to transition a sale of the business. Yeah.
Great. Oh, okay. So sold the business, engineered a succession plan.
Yeah, and probably
fabulous.
Probably in many ways, I'm sorry I did but I was probably just too young. But that whole providoring business, fresh festivals and stuff like that, really took off big time. Probably in the 90s, early 2000s. But still, there was an interesting experience to do.
And so then you came back to Australia.
Yep.
You're doing the restauranting, and then what? What came next?
Well, we went back overseas and we finished off our holiday and came back, and then we decided to work for a while. My wife got a job in teaching, but she wasn't really destined to be a teacher. She wanted to do law, and she'd been in law and was going to go back to it. I got a job back at Waverley College where I taught for a while, and I did my Master of Commerce while I was there. And then inexplicably, Maureen got pregnant. I don't know how she did that. And so she then stopped teaching because we had Marty. And then I got a job tutoring at New South part-time, and then got a job at Sydney Grammar School teaching. So between them, it made it sort of economically comfortable. I did leave one part out of my story, is that I always wanted to do journalism and had been given a cadetship at the Sydney Morning Herald straight out of school. But the guy who was going to retire decided to wait 6 months before he retired. So they said, well, look, we'll make you a copy boy until halfway through the year. When he retires, you get the cadetship. But I didn't want to be a copy boy. No. And anyway, in actual fact, the person who was the IR person said, look, you want to be a sports journalist. That's what I wanted to do. She said, I reckon if you go to university and do commerce, you won't want to do that. And she was right.
Yeah.
Along the way. I eventually got offered a cadetship with Max Welch at the Fin Review. But that's why I didn't take it up, because Maureen inexplicably got pregnant.
Wow.
So I had to stay in teaching because it was a much more valuable source of income than doing cadetship.
And you said before that teachers were very important in your life as a young man as well. So there's that education bent that, and today your business has still got an educational component to it. So very important part.
And I think my role in the
are.
media, I've never been a sensationalist. I often think bad news is just a distraction from the real news, and sometimes bad news has to be like during the GFC, those sorts of things. That was bad news. But day to day, we worry about so many ridiculous bad news stories, which are high in the bulletins. I remember saying to Mike Willesee Jr. once at Sky, I said, Mike, why do we always preoccupy ourselves with negative news when there's some really good stuff around? And he looked at me as though I was...
You had another head.
Yes, right. He just said, Switz, if it bleeds, it leads. And that's the mentality of news. And so what happens is a lot of good news is actually missed. So on my TV shows and my radio shows, my columns, if I can underline the good news out there, I do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. We need more of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But when you look at the nature of news and what people watch, we seemingly like bad news. Maybe we need to pioneer a good news bulletin once a week even. Yeah.
So how did you end up in all of the journalism side, the commentating? How did you end up there?
Well, what happened was when I was at New South, my youngest had to go to hospital, so I dropped out of my coursework for doing my PhD.
So you have two sons?
Yeah, two sons,
Yep.
Marty and Alex.
Yep.
And so I was doing a PhD, full-time tutoring, which was only 20 hours worth of tutoring. The rest you would do your coursework and whatever. And so I just said to the leaders out there that, look, I'll just drop out while my son's not well. Fortunately, he recovered really quickly, and so I had time off. And at that time, the Herald was doing an HSC series, so I just rang up the Telegraph, asked to speak to the editor. Inexplicably, went straight through. Editor answered it. I did the pitch. He said, I like the idea of an HSC series, and I said I could get the best teachers in the city of Sydney to do maybe a piece based on 4 articles to help their sons or daughters if they were doing the HSC. He liked the idea of it, so we did it. We did it for 2 years. I did the economics out of that. Now that became a regular column on Wednesdays, up against Ross Gittins. David White at Triple M used to read it all the time. He was doing a documentary in August 87, about are we living on borrowed time? He asked me to help him. I said yes. The stock market crashed, and all of a sudden I was working with Doug Mulray on Triple M.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Lucky.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that.
Well, maybe if you
meant
position,
to be.
Yeah, you position yourself.
Yeah, that's
I do
right.
believe in visualisation in many ways.
I read that. I read in an article. You've written a number of articles, obviously, over time, but there's one theme that keeps coming up. You said people keep asking you, what are the critical success factors in business? And you talk about visualisation and setting goals and imagining that they have come to pass.
Yeah, I know there's been some kind of what might look like screwy books written on that subject, but a lot of really successful people who I've interviewed, I've got a lot. I was lucky, from about 92, 93, I was small business editor at The Australian. I did it as a contractor, I wasn't an employee. But it meant that I interviewed some of the most successful Australian business and international, Richard Branson, Jack Welch from GE, those are people I've interviewed. And a characteristic is that they've got enormous self-belief, they do visualise where they want to go, and invariably I think their drive and their focus drives them to where they want to be. And I think it's more than good luck. There's a little bit of they drive those success factors towards them, I think.
Yeah.
It was a magnetic thing.
And do you have goals that you write down? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, I haven't been as fanatical about that in my early days, but more likely to do it now as I fine tune, as you get distracted more. I think we've always had a central goal in our family, and everyone in our family, from my sons, my wife, our daughter-in-laws, they all have, in a sense, embraced the goal, and a lot of that's around, building the brands of our businesses. We've always tried, like when we started our financial planning business, we knew we couldn't be like other financial planners, so we rebated commissions, we charged flat dollar fees.
Yep.
And a lot of the industry is now caught up with
Yes.
parts of that. They still charge percentage fees, we charge dollar fees. We didn't think it was a right thing to penalise someone just because they're successful.
Had more money.
If they're complicated and they involve
Sure.
lots of hours and responsibilities, they paid for it. But so I know when...
That's just fair.
Oh yeah, that's right. And I think because I worked in the media, I just couldn't, and I'd always been identified as someone who said, this is a good product, this is trustworthy. I couldn't play a game I wasn't comfortable with. So I think in terms of our brand, we don't associate ourselves with any product that we wouldn't be really comfortable with, telling our customers. So that's been a consistent theme in our business, I think.
So talk to me a little bit
It's
about...
cost us money sometimes,
I'm
but the
sure
brand
it has,
hasn't been damaged.
But in the long term, your
Yeah.
good name is intact.
Exactly,
And that's
and
what
the brand
matters.
is very valuable.
So tell me a little bit about the business today, because it's actually quite a big business today.
Yeah, we've got 45 to 50 employees. So the core of the business is the financial services group, and that's the financial planning business.
And you've come into that quite late, really, haven't you?
Yeah, it was only about probably 8, maybe 9 years ago. And I used to refer people to other people who I trusted, but I just started to realise the person I trusted wasn't necessarily the person who was going to look after the person who went there. And so we decided to, embrace financial planning. And so what happened was, first we had that. Of course, I was writing for newspapers and whatever, but as the internet became an option for us, we then grew switzer.com.au, which drags in something like 500,000 people a month, and they're small business builders, they're wealth builders, they're a classic AB audience, and that's really helped us grow a following. We then created the Switzer Super Report, went for the self-managed super fund person. And we've got about 5,000 people taking that report on a weekly basis. That's a subscriber model, and that's a good little business. We have Grow Your Business and Switzer Broker, so that's for the mortgage broking industry, because we did the magazine for that for quite some time. So we got to know that database very well. And Grow Your Business is based on my book, 350 Ways to Grow Your Small Business, which ultimately was even translated to the Chinese market.
So how do you deliver services in that? Is it?
It's just a website. There's education and all that sort of stuff. But we're now we've just created an online business coaching product. So one of the big problems with business coaching, which we've always done in concert with a friend of ours who's very, very good, we couldn't scale it up. That's the problem. So we've decided to do these whole sets of modules, which will be economical, because a lot of people just can't.
They don't know the numbers.
Yes, right. They won't pay for it. They don't understand the value of it. It seems too expensive, and it often is very expensive. I think good business coaching is very rewarding. It's worth the investment. But this is a new product which will be launched later this year or early next year, and it'll be in modules, and people can do it at their own pace.
So it's much more accessible to the everyday small business owner.
That's right, and it won't be expensive as well. And a lot of big corporations are liking the idea of it. We might get a few of them backing this as well, so I'm looking forward to that. And Grow Your Business has great content. And then we also have a women's fashion magazine called Rush. Yeah, which a lot of people are surprised about that.
That's like really left of field, isn't it?
It is. And my daughter-in-law, Jess Blanche, she's the editor of that. She was offered their editorship under the original owners. The GFC made it hard for that business. So Jess said, well, I come from a publishing family. I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving it. So they offered us a chance to buy into it. We did. They still wanted to get out, so we bought them out. And we've grown the digital side of this business, and it's done very well. I opened up a copy recently, and there were 10 pages of ads before the index, which as a reader I hate, but as an owner you love.
Oh yeah, it's just dollar signs there, isn't it?
That's right. And between my son Alex, who built a lot of our digital properties, and Jess, they've got a really big following. And like Miranda Kerr volunteered to do a cover shoot, and when they actually did the video of the photo shoot, and that went quite viral, it's now in the blacks. We bought it in the red, it's now in the black. It's got a lot of potential, and it's a challenging area, but we still do okay. I
think it's the combination of the journalism and the technology that if you can get that right, you'll do well. Yeah,
and so there's a big following overseas. I know when I was in Paris, I was on the Rue de Rivoli, excuse my poor French, but I went into W.H. Smith, the news agency on that very famous French street, and
there it was.
Russia's being
How
sold
exciting.
there. Yeah, great.
So what's the future look like for you guys now? And for you in particular?
Well, the future is Switzer Financial Services goes to a new level because we will have a fund that we list on the stock market probably before the end of the year. If for some reason it's delayed, it'll be in the new year. And we've created a fund based on the investment principles I like. I like good quality companies that pay dividends, but also have the potential for growth. And if you do that kind of thing, and you have a good group of companies, the stock market can be a less scary thing, and it can be quite a rewarding thing. So we're doing that in concert with a really well-respected investment group, which I can't name at this point in time.
Okay. Yep.
But we've got some really great people on the investment committee as well.
How far away is that?
I think probably the end of November, maybe early December, it'll be announced.
Oh, this year?
This year.
Wow.
This year.
Weeks away.
We're just waiting for ASX to give the final sign-off, and we'll launch it. So that's going to be a fascinating development for us.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. So.
And what comes after that? So the next 5 years for you, what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, I think our financial services will have quite substantial growth, and that will become probably the great revenue spinner of the business. I think Grow Your Business will be a quite growth grower, fast grower. I think it'll do really well. And so I just think there's a good momentum in the business right now. And
what does that mean for you?
Look, progressively I'll do less work. I'm still doing crazy things. I write every morning, so I get up at 5 a.m. But a lot of it gets me ready for the day. I do TV 4 afternoons a week. I've started a radio program on 2UE Monday to Thursday, 4 to 5, which adds to the craziness. But I still enjoy it. Maureen and I exercise 2 hours every morning. We'll get up and maybe walk between. I write between 5 and 6. We might take off 6:30, 8:30. We'll walk or run or go swimming and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But eventually, because our team and our family involved are all very good at what they do, I might, like for example, my son Marty hosts my TV show when I'm not there. Yeah. I'll probably do a lot less work, a lot more stuff on the board, probably do guest spots on Sky and 2UE and stuff like that, but that's probably a couple of years on.
Do you know what I think you need to do?
Tell me.
I think you need to write some things down that you want to do in your future.
Yeah, good point, good point. I read recently Robert De Niro said, write down 25 things you want to do and start doing them.
There you go, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I've got to say, I'm doing what I like.
That's good.
What I do in the morning, getting up,
writing,
thinking, communicating.
Great.
That's what I do.
That's what you love.
That's what I do.
And good on you.
I can do that for a long time, as long as my health holds up, and so far so good.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for being here this afternoon. I've really enjoyed chatting. I could sit here all day and listen to you. Yeah. It's wonderful, and people should have done it before because you've got a lot of interesting things to say.
Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks for making me go down that memory lane.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter.